If you are a buyer looking to buy in the Middle Tennessee area in 2022, then stay tuned because in today's video, I'm gonna be talking about what you need to know when buying in a seller's market. Everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin and I am a local Nashville real estate agent, and I specialize in helping savvy sellers who want to sell right and sell smart, as well as helping out-of-staters looking to relocate to the Middle Tennessee area. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, thank you so much. Please feel free to click subscribe down below so that you are notified anytime I release new video content. So in today's video, this is going to be a really important topic. This is going to be what to know if you are looking to buy in the Nashville sellers market, which we are expected to see throughout the continuation of 2022. So if you are a first-time home buyer, this is something that you need to know. Even if you are a seasoned buyer and you've bought in other states or you have bought in other real estate market conditions, stay tuned because this is information that you need to know. I keep running into people who continue to ask me certain questions about how to buy, how to be competitive in this market. So I figured we need to dive into this topic and talk about what you need to know to make you the strongest buyer possible when buying in a seller's market. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, so again, this is gonna be great information whether you're a first-time home buyer or whether this is gonna be your first time buying in the Middle Tennessee area, or maybe this is your first time buying in a seller's market. So let's talk about what you need to know as a buyer buying in a seller's market here. So first of all, like I've mentioned about a million times already, yes, we are very much in a seller's market, which means we are dealing with low supply, high demand. Even in these winter months, we are still seeing really strong demand. It's just not quite the intensity that we saw back in the spring. Now, as we head into 2022, I do anticipate a very, very strong spring selling season like we had this past year. So, what do you need to know if that is around the time frame that you're looking to buy, or even if you're looking to buy sooner or a little after that? The principles of this are pretty much the same. There's just a couple of nuances that can change, but this is ultimately what you need to know. In a seller's market, you need to load up your offer as favorably to the seller as you can possibly make it. Now, a couple of things that I continue to hear is, well, I want a good deal, or I don't want to overpay, or I don't want to have to play the game, or there's all sorts of things that I continue to hear, and I get it. But ultimately, if you are looking to buy here, you've got to play the game a little bit in order to get into a home, because otherwise you're just going to be spinning your wheels, and that's not ultimately going to get you to your end result of getting into a home here. So what do you need to know? Well, first let's talk about a couple of things that are going to be in the contract here. So of course you're going to need to denote purchase price. You're also going to need to look at things like earnest money. You're going to need to denote whether you're going to be cash or loan, and if you're loan, what kind of loan. And then from there, you got to look at the appraisal contingency and inspection contingency. If you are financing, of course, there's the financing contingency. So just to streamline that for you guys a little bit. So if you are doing a loan, I like to kind of try to streamline the contract for people and tell them there are three main contingencies that we have in our contracts here in the Middle Tennessee area. The first one is going to be the inspection contingency. The second one is going to be the appraisal. And then the third is the financing. So those are all contingencies, which mean kind of think of it as if you're going down a highway, and those three contingencies are your three exit points of the contract in which you could legally exit the contract and get your earnest money back. Which your earnest money, if you don't know, you can check out this video where I talk about earnest money, but it's basically your good faith money, your trust money is what it's called in other states. But it goes down basically saying like, hey, I'm making good, I'm gonna move forward with this contract in good faith. So you have those three main contingencies that need to be addressed in these contracts. So of course you're gonna have to discuss purchase price. Now, a lot of times people are asking me, well, what are the comps? Because if you have watched any real estate show, or maybe you've gone through the real estate process, but not in a seller's market, it's very easy to ask, well, what are the comps? And you wanna know what the price per square foot is. And you wanna know what's recently sold in the neighborhood so that what you're asking is similar to the price per square foot that has sold recently, right? Well, here's the thing. That has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit in this seller's market that we've been in. So we've had to kind of adjust because our market has moved so quickly this year that we have to start looking at, okay, what is the average over asking price in this neighborhood? That is going to be a big determining factor when you're trying to figure out what to offer. Of course, there's always going to be, your agent should be, I always do, make a call to the list agent to kind of get a temperature check on how many offers are coming in, see if you can get a ballpark of where you might need to be so that you can potentially be in the running to be on top. So there's a lot of things that go into trying to determine that price factor. I also always tell people, you need to give a number that you are okay with. Like, that is your number, that if you are not the chosen one, you said, okay, we've done our best, but also the number that if you are the winning offer, you feel comfortable making the purchase at that price. Of course, if you are financing, because you're going over ask, the next piece of that is going to be the appraisal piece of the contract. And so in this market, what a lot of list agents are asking for and what they want to see, they want the appraisal addressed one way or the other. So that can look a couple of different ways, because in the contract, there's two boxes. One says that it is contingent upon the appraisal, one says it's not. So in an ideal seller's world, they want that not contingent upon appraisal checked. However, if you are going over a certain amount, say you are going over $50,000 and you have $50,000 available to you to cover an appraisal gap from the purchase price to the amount that you're going over, you can still check the box that says that it is contingent upon appraisal, but you are willing to cover up to a $50,000 gap between what the potential lowest appraised value is, which you're assuming that it's what the asking price is, up to where you are willing to purchase. I always tell people, let's plan for a worst case scenario when you're trying to determine numbers like that. So always assume that it's going to come in right at asking, and then you've got to cover that gap. Now, we have seen a lot of appraisals, they are either matching up to how much people have gone over, or they might be falling just short. It's all dependent on appraiser, neighborhoods, counties, things like that. They do want that appraisal piece addressed, because if you just leave it in there as contingent upon appraisal, no gap coverage, no nothing, that severely weakens your offer in a seller's market when you're up against multiple offers. So that is something that you really have to consider. And then of course, if you are financing, then of course the financing piece will be done. The other thing, a couple other things to consider in the offer and trying to make it as strong as possible, you do need to look at that inspection contingency. And actually, we just reviewed the new 2022 contracts that are coming out from our association. That, typically they revise them a little bit every year. So in the way the contract is written, standard language, it says the buyer has the right to the inspection. There is a box to check if you want to waive all inspections, but I know, and I mean, most of the time I don't recommend that, just because you as a buyer still deserve protection in the contract. You shouldn't have to lay yourself completely bare and vulnerable in order to get a home, but you still have the right to an inspection. So you're going to say you have the right to ask, the way it's written, it basically says that you have the right to do any and all inspections within an X amount of period of time. It also says that you have the right to ask for repairs, and again, that has a timestamp on it. That's just how it's written. However, Now there's going to come in an option where it says that the buyer has the right to still do an inspection, but you will accept the property as is. And if something turns up in that inspection, then your option will be to provide a list to the sellers of why you are terminating the contract. So that, again, that's being added in. It's kind of adjusting with what we've seen in our market and how things are going. And so when it comes to the inspection, the way to strengthen it is to have that, you may have heard it before, it's called a pass-fail option, which basically it either passes or fails your standards, but you're willing to accept the property in as-is condition, regardless of what repairs need to be made. That is going to be, outside of waiving the inspection, that's going to be one of the strongest things that you can do. Now, I will have people be like, well, what if there is major roof damage? Or what if there is black mold? Or what if the foundation is starting to fall apart? Yes, here's the thing. That means if you were doing a pass-fail, it means that if those issues presented themselves, it would fail, you terminate the contract, you get your earnest money back. And again, there are nuances to this. There are kind of ways to tweak it a little bit more, but in a seller's market, when you are competing with anywhere between like 5 offers to 20 offers still, even in the slower times, you've got to come in with the best, cleanest terms overall. And then there is one other little piece that I should mention. There is something in our contract called title expenses. And so title expenses is basically like the expense that's incurred in order to do a title search and ensure that the buyer is getting a free and clear title. In a normal market, that's normally an expense that a seller takes on. However, in this market, I'm almost always, like 99% of the time, going to recommend having the buyer take it on, and that is something that's paid at closing. So in this market, I want people to understand, I am by no means telling you that as a buyer to waive everything, have no protection in the contract. That is not at all what I'm saying. There are still ways to protect you and your interest in the contract while also loading it up to be the strongest, cleanest possible offer to give you the best shot possible at getting the home that you want. In this market, the measure of my success working for you as an agent is not necessarily going to be, did you get the best quote unquote deal? It's going to be, did you get the house or not? Because I have been through this market. I'm always going to advise you on how to load up your offer as strong as possible, because again, even though we've talked about different pieces of the contract, there's more nuances again that can go into it. And so when we meet, I actually am going to have like a 10-question checklist that we're going to walk through. The questions are basically going to reveal your financial strengths and what you are and aren't comfortable with. So that way we know before you ever write that first offer, we know what you're comfortable with, we know where your strengths are, so that way we can play those up to the very best of our ability. It's always going to be my goal to advise you on strategies to make sure that you are putting your very best foot forward, because here's the thing. I have seen this enough where buyers, it can get really discouraging if you keep getting beat out, and that can be frustrating. So I want to talk about it up front. Again, figure out where your strengths are, how we can play those up in the offer to again give you the best opportunity at getting that house. Now it may happen the first time out of the gate, which has happened for some clients of mine, and then it may take a couple of chances. And all of this is going to be dependent upon the house, the area, again, the demand that's on it. All of it's going to be dependent. Now, at the beginning of this video, I talked about what are your options if maybe you don't have a ton of cash on hand, maybe to cover an appraisal gap, or maybe you just don't want to deal with the drama of multiple offers. What are your options? So again, when we have that initial conversation and we're talking about what you're looking for, and we go through our checklist and you say, you know what, I would prefer if we can try and stay away from the multiple offer situation. then I'm going to pull up the MLS and we're going to look at what homes are on the MLS that fit your criteria, but we're going to see which ones that are on the MLS that have been sitting longer than 5 to 7 days. Because if the home has been sitting longer, there's more likely a little bit more wiggle room in terms of the terms that you bring to the table. There's also going to most likely be less competition. You could potentially be the only offer that comes to the table, or I have seen it a time or two where your timing just seems to match up with somebody else's timing. And you may be in a hunt for the house between you and maybe one other offer versus you versus 20. So we're gonna look at what's available. And this is by no means saying that you're going to get like a crap house. It's just, here's the thing, with so many buyers, and I mean, this is proof positive of it right here, with so many buyers who are doing their search online, especially those who are out of state who are doing their searches online, looking to see what's available. If the home is not marketed right, if the house has crappy photos, a lot of times the house can maybe show great in person or not terrible in person. But if the photos are terrible, most people are gonna overlook it. But if you are willing to look at the possibility of looking at a home that's maybe sitting a little longer on the market, that maybe needs a little bit cosmetic work, then you're looking at the possibility of being able to get a home without the drama of a multiple offer situation and without having to go exceedingly over asking price. So that is one strategy. There's a couple other that we can talk about when we're going through our initial consultation and looking at what you guys are looking for, what you want in your home buying experience. And again, I'm just gonna leave you with a couple of more thoughts. So I mean, if you are like me and you are that competitive person where you're like, well shoot, if I'm gonna go this much over asking, then I expect a laundry list of things from the seller. That's gonna be pretty much dead in the water upon arrival. If you are just expecting them, if you're like, well, hey, I'll go 70,000 over asking, but I want them to pay for this and I want them to do this, this, and this. Again, dead on arrival essentially, because in this market, and I can speak from experience dealing with my own sellers, when you are looking at the terms of the contract and you've got multiple offers sitting on the table, you're going to want to go with the offer that is best, cleanest, and most likely to close. So again, in this market, the best way to be the best, strongest buyer possible is going to be the best and highest terms you've got right out of the gate. Be willing to concede a little bit when it comes to it. That doesn't mean that you waive all your rights and all your things. That's not it at all. It's just be willing to put your best foot forward. And here's the thing, I work with a lot of buyers, but I can also tell you from working with my sellers, when you have several offers sitting on the table and you're looking at the terms, there are some where if you're looking at it and you're comparing term against term and you have a great high number, great terms, clean, and then you're looking at another that maybe it's a similar price, similar terms, but then they're asking for the seller to pay for maybe title expenses or pay towards closing cost or whatever it may be, then of course, just think about that. If you are on the selling side, of course, you're most likely going to take the one that best benefits you as a seller. So again, if you are a buyer and that doesn't feel good to you, then let's talk about what your options are. Now, if you have the means to be strong and you're ready to rock and roll, that's great too. But I really just want to prep people because again, if you've never bought in a seller's market, then what can be asked of you can feel really counterintuitive, and it can often make you wonder like, well, why am I doing this? And again, this is just the way that our market is working right now. And especially if you are considering moving and buying in the spring selling season, this is going to be really, really helpful because while things have softened a little bit, we do anticipate it to pick back up, which again means that you are going to have to like suit up for battle, put your best foot forward from the very beginning, and just be ready to play the game. And then there's gonna be one more thing that's gonna be really important when it comes to being a buyer navigating and winning out in a seller's market, and that is gonna be that you really need to pick an agent that you have full trust in their capabilities to best serve you. Because I have seen it, other colleagues have seen it, where if a buyer doesn't trust the advice that you are giving them, then that's going to start to tie your hands. And it is always my goal to make sure that if one of my buyers really wants a home, I'm going to always give you the best advice possible and advise you on how to really load up that offer to give you the best shot at it. Because if you are working with somebody and you don't want to take their advice, or you think that maybe they don't know what they're talking about, then that's just going to cause the water to get a little muddy, and ultimately it's just going to end up spinning your wheels and spinning their wheels. So make sure that you feel confident in your agent's ability to help you navigate it, because again, the buying process gets super emotional for most people, and the worst thing as an agent is having to tell people your offer wasn't accepted. I love nothing more than winning. I love nothing more than getting to deliver that great news. But when it comes to navigating this market, a big piece of that process is going to be trusting your agent and trusting the advice that they give you, and making sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of what you are comfortable with doing, and making sure that your agent is willing to abide by what you're comfortable doing. And also, it may push you outside of that initial comfort level if you've bought in maybe a normal market or a buyer's market. But again, it's going to be having that conversation, making sure that what is being asked of you, you're comfortable with, and if not, what are you comfortable with? So that when it comes time to put in that offer, you do have full trust in your agent's ability to advise you well, to give you the best opportunity at getting that home. So if you have any questions about what it is like to buy in a seller's market, what you can do to make yourself the most attractive buyer possible, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All of my contact information is below. You can also grab my free Nashville relocation guide. Just click the link down below and it'll be shot to your email. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. My name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.